Hey everyone, it is throat chakra time, finally. Thank you for your patience again, and for the new people, I've been doing a series of chakra videos around where we can get energetically and emotionally blocked in our different chakras as healers, as light workers. And I got all the way up to, and I've been doing this video series for a long time. I got up to the heart and we got stuck because a whole bunch of other stuff happened. So it's been weeks and weeks, and I'm finally getting back on track, and I still have to do the throat and the third eye and the crown. So we're finally at the throat. But if you want to see the other videos, those should all be in the video section of this group, so you can catch up with us. Okay, so throat chakra. This is a huge one for healers. This is very obviously about communication and being heard. And there's so many different layers and levels to this. So the way that I see it mostly with healers is that we get silenced, and this goes back many past lives, because we all have a long history of being persecuted and harmed for doing this work, unfortunately, because of time periods and cultures and humanity. So many healers have a lot of wounds right in the throat chakra around this stuff. But it's about being silenced, either literally being shut down, or about metaphorical or figuratively being silenced around speaking your truth, defending yourself, protecting yourself, sharing your gifts, literally communicating your gifts. I mean, there are many, like I said, many layers to how this can manifest. And again, like I said before, in many videos, because we have a long history of being persecuted, many of our souls hold these wounds, and we bring them into this life. And so for the new people, my clientele, just in case you guys don't know, my clientele is all healers and light workers. So people who do this professionally, in any capacity, energy work, mediumship, pretty much any way you can think of that's bringing healing through to the world, because that's what we're here to do. And so I work with clients who have wounds. I shouldn't say wounded clients. Clients who have wounds that are blocking them from fully doing what they want to do in this life and what they're meant to do in this life, which is bring their gifts through. And so all the videos are centered around what I've seen with my clients and where we all get stuck in our different chakras. And then for me personally too, I've incarnated with all these wounds. So I was trying to think of a good example of a recent client around the throat chakra, and I did work with a woman recently she has a Reiki practice, and she does bring intuitive information through, or she has the capability of doing it. But she noticed that every time she got to the point of starting to bring stuff through, she would start to feel pressure on the back of her neck, like literal tension and pressure just pushing against the back of her neck. And it kind of stopped her. She didn't know what to do with it. She didn't know what it was about, and so she ended up coming to me feeling like I can't really fully bring my gifts through because something's preventing me. And so what we did was some very deep past life work. And the way that I do this is that because we've all lived hundreds of lives, and in a session you can't go through hundreds of lives, I ask your guides, or my clients' guides, for what I call a root past life. So it's basically like I call it the union representative of a certain issue that you're working on. So it's a symbolic life. It's a real life, but it's one that kind of encapsulates a long line of lives that have been harmed or have wounds around a certain issue that you're working on. So for her, we asked, let's find the root life around this throat chakra stuff. And this incarnation came through. This was from, back in the day when there were villages, and it was a very long time ago. Anyway, what happened was she had tried to do this work in her life, and she'd been put in the stocks for it. And she'd been, so she literally was in the stocks with her head against, pressed against the wood, and she'd been humiliated and ostracized for doing her work in her little village. And so what was happening with my client was that as she was trying to do her work in this life, her soul was getting triggered. That wound was getting triggered. And it was like her soul knew, okay, I'm supposed to do this work, so I'm starting to get stuff, but then the wound would come forward, and it just completely, she could feel it physically. She could start remembering, her soul would start to remember that physical feeling. And so that ended up stopping her from doing what she was really meant to do in this life. So we did a lot of healing work with that incarnation, first hearing her story and connecting with her, and then finding out what we need to do to help her heal. And once that happens, I see a ripple forward effect where it heals not only all the past lives that have to do with that incarnation is representing, but it really ripples into the present life, and it heals the wounds that we've brought forward into this life. And so what happened beautifully was that after we did that work, and it was some deep work, my client was able to start bringing things through in her sessions without feeling that pressure that she'd always felt. And she found that the more she kind of opened up and allowed it to come through, the more her throat chakra opened up, and the connection just got stronger, and she started really bringing through things that resonated for her clients and really helped them. So, but she needed to get that energetic wound out of there. So that is a really good example of throat chakra wounds. And for me, I always like to share personal stories because I'm right there with you guys doing this. In my teens and early 20s, I had a chronic strep throat and tonsillitis, and it was ridiculous because I'm a very healthy person, but it just kept happening over and over. And I didn't know why. I was like, this is weird. I'm always very healthy. And then I finally started. This was before I got in this path. And then when I started doing my own deep healing work with the chakras and with past lives and all of that. I've never had tonsillitis. I've never had strep throat again. My throat is very happy. So it's nice and wide open. But I needed to do some deep healing work around it and find out, what was my body manifesting that it was trying to get my attention. And I just didn't know it at the time because I hadn't been on this path yet. But so that's my personal example. And that came from me being silenced many, many, many times in past lives. I have a huge long history of being persecuted for this work, and then also in this life. So there's a lot of energy and emotional work to be done there. So so those are the examples I wanted to give. And so if you're feeling my client that I mentioned, she felt it in the back, but if you're feeling like, I've had other clients feel choked up, or like there's a blockage or a lump or a restriction, like it manifests in many different ways, energetically or physically, if you're carrying a wound there when you around doing this work. So if that makes itself known, then it's time to do some deeper work around that and find out, where did this wound start? And it's probably a long history of past lives, and it's probably also been repeated in this life somehow. I've seen some of you post about being in communities or families where this work is not believed in or supported, and that really can reinforce that wound from other lives. And so excuse me, so that's there to help kind of bring it to the surface, so that your soul, it's time to heal this stuff. It's time to really dive in, clean it out, and release what is no longer needed. So all right, so that's the throat chakra. That was a very brief sketch of the throat chakra. Obviously all these chakras are incredibly in-depth and layered, and I could do 100 videos on each chakra, but I'm just trying to encapsulate examples for each one, so to help you guys tune into what's going on. So all right, and the next one up is third eye, which we will get to soon. I hope you guys are well. Keep posting, and I send you lots of love. Bye.